It's a requirement that DLAC and ELAC members receive training on how they function. The ELAC training is pretty simple. You would just go through and talk to them about how to give advisory, and you present them the site plan, and they give advisory. You show them data on attendance, and you ask them for advisory on attendance. You show them the needs assessment, and they advise you on the needs assessment. If you have bylaws that require more training, like Robert's Rules of Order, and how to motion, and how to second, and how to vote, you would provide parents with that training as well. If you have norms, you would provide them with that training as well. It all depends on how each site is running their ELAC. But the training is around their legal advisory responsibilities, which we just reviewed. So, that's actually all the nuts and legal bolts around an ELAC. But there's more. So, yes, go ahead.
Let's say, like, for the community member, if the bylaws say in the school say that there's no need for a community member rep, although the district says there needs to be a community rep, is that allowed?
And that's one of the reasons why we're revising the DLAC bylaws, is because not every school sees the need for that community rep. And our goal is to have parent committees comprised of interested parent parties.
Okay.
So for now, what you could do is say that you have a representative, a first alternate, and a second alternate. And the second alternate serves as your community rep. Okay? That's kind of how we are advising you get around that. So did you hear that you have a representative, a second representative, an alternate representative, otherwise known as your community rep. If Anna wasn't voted into our ELAC when we voted for an ELAC, but now it's our second meeting and we're going to vote for our DLAC rep, can she be our DLAC rep?
If we vote again on the sign-in sheet,
only if
that's, I don't know the terminology yet, but if we say at the beginning of the meeting, before we start the meeting, shall we vote again to make the new parents that are here part of the ELAC committee? And if we did that, then yes. But if we didn't, no.
We didn't. What if she's not a parent of an English learner? Does that matter?
Well, the vote still kicks in because then we would have to make sure that the committee votes for that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So it's whoever your committee voted in. Our DLAC bylaws do not permit for a staff member to be the rep, alternate, or community member. So while they actually could be added to your ELAC, a staff member should not be the representative coming to DLAC because of current DLAC bylaws, okay? Because the DLAC does vote, and the DLAC does need quorum. So it kicks up a bit more at the DLAC level for that reason. You have as a handout, in a nutshell, everything we just reviewed on a one-pager. You are, of course, welcome to use this very same PowerPoint at your schools when you're training your ELAC. I then want to go through a new document that we created. And Anna, is this something we can bring up on the screen? Called the SUHSD Site ELAC Planning Guide. Because I thought it would be important that while we talk about all these requirements, you have an opportunity to let us know at state and federal how you plan on being compliant. So you'll see here, I just went through the same responsibilities. So one responsibility is that they're going to advise the school site council and the needs assessment. So how are you going to do that? How will you ensure the school site? So you will put in here, you would write in here, at our August ELAC meeting, we're going to review the draft of our site plan for parent input. We will do this again in October prior to the final December. So you would really be doing it 3 times, right? Because you're going to review the draft that you're writing right now, because these new parents haven't seen it. You're going to review the version that's going to go to board for final approval sometime in December, So you would review that with them prior to that. And then sometime around April, you're going to review the following year's one with them. So the law really says you only have to do it once. I think it's a good idea just to hit as many of, you have 3 opportunities. So try to get it done in one of those opportunities, okay? If you have strict guidelines around quorum and quorum prevents this from happening in a timely manner, you're now out of compliance as a school. So I, as the Director of State and Federal, do not want to see, you had an agenda, we were going to go through the site plan, you met, meeting not held due to lack of quorum. You're out of compliance. So at that point, you might want to make sure that this meeting, if you have quorum requirements, that you have quorum. This one's going to matter a lot. How is your school going to do the needs assessment? It might mean if you haven't translated the draft of these documents, at least have an interpreter there ready to translate all of this. Because sometimes we think, well, when we present something to the ELAC committee and it's in draft form and we have a draft translated, then we have to invest in having a final translated. That's okay if you just have a translator there explaining everything in Spanish or whatever language you need to the parents. We've been doing that here in DPAC and DLAC. We often present draft documents in English, but we're walking the parents through every item of it in Spanish because it is quite an investment to translate a draft, knowing that you're going to have to go back and translate the final document as well. Okay?
So should the SIPSAs be translated?
The SIPSAs in their final format will be translated. We're actually going to use the doc tracking translation system for that. We're going to pilot that this year and see how good of a translation it is. Yeah. Chula Vista Elementary is translating them. Doc tracking, where we're loading up our site plans, does have a translation service. And we already paid for it, so we're going to use it. Yeah. So how is it that you're going to be compliant? You're going to tell us how you're going to ensure for each one of these. So this should really help you think through how you're going to work with your ELAC. This document is going to be due back to state and federal. So your elections, how are you going to elect? How are they going to elect each other? If your ELAC committee decides to have a subcommittee, they all have to vote for their subcommittee members as well. A subcommittee is typically held to review bylaws. How are they going to vote for their DLAC rep? How are you going to train your ELAC? And I want to know, how are you going to recruit the parents that serve on the ELAC? So this is a document that I'm going to ask back for probably in early August from every school. And we'll make it very public so that schools could see how other schools are doing things. But often if we don't have a plan, then we don't have, we're going to begin with the end in mind and work from there, making sure that we want to be compliant and we want to have a good showing of parents on our parent committee. On the last page of this document, and this is still a bit in draft form, I wanted to show you that this does not fall on one person alone. Ultimately, the person responsible for legal compliance of all things at the school site level is the principal. So you'll see that the principal is responsible for all legal compliance. They're responsible for their school site council compliance. They're responsible for the site plan. They should either serve on the ELAC or delegate another administrator to serve on ELAC. So while it's not a federal requirement that an administrator sit on ELAC, it's a very good practice to ensure that an administrator is sitting on ELAC. Because parents are asking questions about program, they're going to ask questions about funding, they're going to make recommendations, and we're going to want an administrator there guiding, responding, and facilitating those conversations with families. Attending the ELAC coordinator meetings or sending a designee. The SIS, all of our SIS have in their duty statement to work with parent engagement and parent groups. So I wrote down a list of things there. assisting with the parent groups, the development of parent trainings, distribute information. You let us know who your DLAC rep is. You update us when that needs updating. You might be the one keeping the sign-ins and agendas. But notice how it's the exact same copy if you have a community relation facilitator. It's the exact same duties. So if a school has a community relation facilitator, they're working in tandem with their SIS. They're working together on these things. And while in our district, a SIS, which is a resource teacher, you can't legally supervise another staff member, you can actually direct a portion of their work. That is in our contract. But the reason why ultimately you want to make sure that you have an administrator involved and present in all of this is because that administrator evaluates all the staff that follows, right? So that's why you want them aware of what's happening and involved. Site staff should help support the distribution of information regarding ELAC meetings. So this would be your ELD teachers, your front office staff, your bilingual teachers. As much as possible, we want to spread the wealth around who's responsible, at least for making information available and inviting to meetings. And the office clerical as well. Often it's office clerical that's going to secure the translators. You know, they call our department, they call our office here, because typically we're going to need a pseudo number, who are we charging this to, and so forth. And they enter the requisitions for parent support related supplies and light refreshments, because ASSIST does not enter requisitions. That is a clerical task. So I was trying to spell out, if you see anything missing here, let me know. But again, know that this sheet is still kind of under development. Does this help delineate duties a little bit more at the site level?
Will this be given out at the site level?
Yes. Yes, we're going to make sure that the principals are all aware of this, because as they get their community relation facilitators, we want to make very clear what that person's duty statement is in regards to working directly with our ELAC and all the other things that job will do.